Welcome to week number 3. This week's Entrepreneurship in the News is presented by Team 2, Julia Dow, Chris Morton, Cody Pope, Megan Ralston, and Chris Roche. We have chosen an article that relates to this week's topic of opportunity identification and quantification. Why was this article chosen? The businesses discussed in this article were led by entrepreneurs who recognized the need to pivot and found the opportunities available to make the shift. Another reason the article was chosen was the identified reasons for the pivot were different and relatable to this week's materials of identifying opportunities, quantifying them, as well as the tactical application of TAM and SAM. In addition, we were able to relate other core concepts from this course and deepen our understanding of entrepreneurship. We will discuss how the need to pivot relates to our course concepts. The entrepreneurs featured in this article demonstrated the ability to identify and quantify opportunities, mitigate risk, and realize that their past successes cannot be drawn upon for future growth. The common thread is that despite the reason for the disruptions, all of the forward-thinking business persons featured required a pivot to survive. We will examine the entrepreneur's opportunity identification and quantification, transformation types, and affordable loss assessments. Mr. Shah identified an opportunity and predictable customer demand through his own need for a meeting room and primary research that indicated hotels have no efficient means to lease out vacant meeting space. Mr. Shah's new business opportunity was timely as the need to conduct business meetings, team-building events, or conferences is relevant today. As it relates to durability, as discussed in this Forbes article, the need to connect face-to-face is part of what makes us human and is not going to be replaced by technology. New York is definitely the right place with a large population, major business hub, and a large number of hotels. Another pivot occurred when Mr. Brost identified a need to improve people's lives, not simply achieve increased profit. An opportunity presented itself by way of purchasing a new business, Spark Policy Institute. The predictable customer demand could be measured by the current results of Spark. Market evaluations and trend analysis could support forecasted demand for the business as well as assess timing and durability. Because the nature of the business is to provide an operating strategy service to charities, governments, and nonprofits, the right place could virtually be anywhere there is a need. Nicole Harris identified that her total available market, TAM, was too small and pivoted from offering services for marriage proposals to include weddings, corporate events, etc. Wedding trends change, however, there will likely always be a market for weddings and events. Because Nicole is providing a service of planning and organization, she is able to be wherever the need is greatest. She currently plans weddings and events from Washington to Hawaii. Poum Lefebvre had to acquire a whole new skill set and shifted their offerings when the core of the business shifted due to their customers no longer producing printed corporate reports. The predictable customer demand component was met as evidenced by the fact that they worked with current clients, learning along the way to reveal the business opportunity that would continue to produce a revenue stream as well as fulfill client needs.
Ms. Harris realized that the scope of One Last Frog, which originally focused solely on the proposal, was too narrow. Her total available market offered a one-time only business opportunity with no repeat customers. Deleting or supplementing involves the process of adding new products or services to the existing offering. These new additions or deletions can be related to the core business or can be completely unrelated. The pivot was to supplement current proposal services with wedding and corporate event planning services. This expanded total market offered a larger pool of clients to draw from, as well as an opportunity for repeat business. In contrast to the deleting or supplementing approach, the composing or decomposing approach involves reorganization of the product or service and repackaging it to offer it in a new way. The Lefebvres recognized the need to mitigate risk to their core business segment of design for corporate reports. They decompose components of their firm to present their design offering in a new way. Rather than corporate reports, they offered design by way of full-scale photo shoots. Exaptation is described as transforming an existing product and giving it a new use. Mr. Shaw transformed empty hotel meeting rooms into a marketable tool to provide a service to business persons by way of offering a space to meet, and to hotels by a third-party revenue generator for typically vacant spaces. The biggest opportunity is not always evident. For example, Ms. Harris's niche market of proposal events could have an upside to the event planning that improved profitability, for instance, less man hours and financial commitment required. Ms. Harris chose that the best opportunity for her was to expand the offering to include weddings and events, significantly improving the total available market. MPV calculation is anchored in demand, assessing the high and low demand for the product or service. The next step is to calculate how much it costs to deliver the product or service. In addition, capital costs and variability of the forecast need to be considered. We would make the following assumptions based on the information of the Business Traveler app of Mr. Shaw that it found little traction. What is the forecast demand? We can assume very little based on the current response. Mr. Shaw's determined that the costs associated with pursuing this Business Traveler app were too high and that it was time to cut his losses and move on to a new venture. The Lefebvres weighed the alternative to arrange the design services they offered or perish. Personal investment into each alternative is evaluated by determining the following for each alternative: time commitment, reputation, opportunity cost, knowledge, and emotional commitment. These are highly objective criteria that are difficult to measure, but ask what is the downside risk of each alternative. The Lefebvre's time commitment for the new design approach was significant, as they had to decompose and recognize and reorganize company assets, including intellectual property. The alternative to continue along the same design principles would require no incremental time. Reputation was at stake, and they worked closely with partners to learn as they go. The alternative would have left them obsolete in the design world, and becoming irrelevant would be a death sentence for sure. Pivot or perish. While opportunity and bright idea can spur a pivot, there should be careful consideration of TAM and SAM. For example, Mr. Shaw would need to assess his total available market as hotels in New York. Once that information was obtained, he should omit 30% off the top to accommodate for hotels that are not interested. Because his idea is based solely on vacancy rate, the average vacancy rate will make up the TAM. The next step Mr. Shaw would take is to figure out the serviceable available market. This would be hotels with vacancies that have suitable meeting rooms from a size, location, and service standpoint. The serviceable obtainable market Mr. Shaw would assess is his realistic market share. As this is a new idea originally, there would be no competition. However, for forecasting, one should consider copycats, as this idea has a fairly low barrier of entry. Mr. Shaw should then be able to come up with a realistic sales projection for the initial year of business. Have you been part of or witnessed a situation where someone should have pivoted? Did they? Did they not? What happened? And what would you have suggested to them?